I didn't ever intended it to be a record. I just was writing songs and then kind of, I'll just send her these songs, then she'll understand, you know?
Phil Collins first gained recognition as the drummer and lead singer for Genesis, later achieving remarkable success as a solo artist. His career spans a wide range of musical genres, from rock and pop to jazz and film scoring, showcasing his versatility and creativity. Collins has made a lasting impact on the music industry, despite facing serious health challenges, including hearing loss and multiple spinal surgeries. His life has been marked by both professional triumphs and personal difficulties, including several marriages and ongoing health issues. Unfortunately, in recent years, his health has significantly deteriorated. At 73, Collins has revealed his devastating health condition. Before delving into that, let's reflect on his remarkable journey and achievements. The early beginnings of a musical legend. Born on January 30th, 1951, Philip David Charles Collins is a multifaceted English musician, singer, songwriter, record producer, and actor. Initially gaining fame as the drummer and later the lead singer for the rock band Genesis, Collins also carved out an immensely successful solo career. He achieved 3 UK #1 singles and 7 US #1 singles as a solo artist. His collaboration with Genesis, other artists, and his solo work resulted in more US top 40 singles than any other artist in the 1980s. Iconic singles from this period include In the Air Tonight, Against All Odds, One More Night, Susudio, Another Day in Paradise, and I Wish It Would Rain Down. Today, as he battles a health crisis, there's much to reflect upon. His is a legacy worthy of the name. But it all started normally. Collins opened his eyes at the Putney Hospital in Wandsworth, southwest London, and grew up in a dynamic and artistic family environment. His father, Greville Philip Austin Collins, was an insurance agent for London Assurance, and his mother, Winifred June Collins, initially worked in a toy shop before transitioning to a booking agent role at the Barbara Speake Stage School in East Acton, an independent performing arts school. Collins is the youngest of 3 children. His sister Carol pursued a career as a professional ice skater, and later became a theatrical agent, while his brother Clive made a name for himself as a noted cartoonist. The Collins family moved twice by the time Phil was 2 years old, eventually settling in Hounslow, Middlesex. From an early age, Collins showed a keen interest in music, receiving a toy drum kit for Christmas when he was 5. His 2 uncles later made a makeshift drum set for him. This kit consisted of triangles and tambourines that could fit into a suitcase. As he grew older, his parents supported his passion by purchasing more complete drum sets. Collins honed his skills by playing along to music on the television and radio, demonstrating his innate musical talent. At 7, during a family holiday at Butlins, he entered a talent contest and sang The Ballad of Davy Crockett. In a display of his budding musical precision, he stopped the orchestra halfway through to inform them they were playing in the wrong key. Around the age of 12, Phil Collins began receiving basic piano and music lessons from his father's aunt. He then studied drum rudiments under Lloyd Ryan and later under Frank King. Despite this structured learning, Collins never learned to read or write musical notation, instead developing his own system. He later expressed regret over this, acknowledging that while his method of playing what he could hum worked for him, it was ultimately a limiting approach. Collins attended Nelson Primary School until he was 11, before moving on to Chiswick County Grammar School. During his time there, he developed an interest in football and formed a school band called The Real Thing, which featured Andrea Bertarelli, his future wife, and Lavinia Lang as backup singers. Collins continued to explore music with his next group, The Freehold, where he wrote his first song, Lying, Crying, Dying, and later joined a band named The Charge. He also had a close childhood friendship with Jack Wilde, who gained fame for his role as the Artful Dodger in the film Oliver. The two attended the same stage school, a decision influenced by Collins's mother, June, who noticed Wilde's talent while they played football in the park. These early experiences and relationships not only shaped Collins's musical journey, but also intertwined his personal and professional lives, setting the stage for his future successes. So how did his career take off? Let's find out. Moving from acting to a musical career. At 14, Phil Collins decided to quit school and became a full-time student at the Barbara Speake Stage School. Following this, he landed an uncredited role as an extra in the 1964 Beatles film A Hard Day's Night, appearing among the screaming teenagers during the television concert sequence. Later that year, Collins was cast as the Artful Dodger in 2 West End runs of the musical Oliver, earning £15 a week for what he described as the best part for a kid in all London. His tenure as the Dodger ended abruptly when his voice broke during a performance, forcing him to speak his lines for the remainder of the show. Collins also starred in the 1967 film Calamity the Cow, produced by the Children's Film Foundation. A disagreement with the director led to Collins quitting acting to focus on music. Although he was cast to appear in 1968's Chitty Chitty Bang Bang as one of the children storming the castle, his scene was ultimately cut. Collins also auditioned for the role of Romeo in Romeo and Juliet, but the part went to Leonard Whiting. During this time, he also traveled the UK, teaching the crunch dance as seen in a Smith's Crisps advertising campaign. Collins's enthusiasm for music continued to grow during his acting years. He frequently visited the Marquee Club on Wardour Street, where he eventually assisted with setting up chairs, sweeping floors, and working in the cloakroom. It was at the Marquee Club that Collins was significantly influenced by watching performances by the Action and Yes. Although he auditioned unsuccessfully for Vinegar Joe and Manfred Mann Chapter 3, Collins secured a spot in the Cliff Charles Blues Band, touring the country. This led to a stint with the Gladiators, a backing band for a black vocal quartet, which included his schoolmate Ronnie Carroll on guitar. In 1969, Collins and Carroll joined John Walker's backing band for a European tour, which also featured guitarist Gordon Smith and keyboardist Brian Chatton. After the tour, the quartet formed a rock band called Hickory, recording the single Green Light / The Key, before rebranding as Flaming Youth. The band signed with Fontana Records and released the 1969 concept album Arc 2, which narrates the story of humanity's evacuation from a burning Earth and journey into space, with each band member contributing lead vocals. Despite the album's ambition, Flaming Youth disbanded in May 1970. Collins then played congas on George Harrison's song Art of Dying, although his performance was omitted from the final cut. In July 1970, Genesis, then a relatively unknown band, faced a setback after recording their second album, Trespass, due to the departures of drummer John Mayhew and guitarist Anthony Phillips. Determined to continue, they advertised for a new drummer and a 12-string guitarist in Melody Maker. Collins recognized Charisma owner Tony Stratton Smith's name in the ad, and alongside his friend Ronnie Carroll, attended the auditions. Genesis had been a full-time band for less than a year. Arriving early, Collins took a swim at Gabriel's parents' house and memorized the pieces played by previous auditioning drummers. On 80 August 1970, after impressing the band, Collins became their fourth drummer. From 1970 to 1975, Collins played drums and percussion and provided backing vocals on Genesis albums and tours. His first album with the band, Nursery Crime, featured the acoustic song For Absent Friends, where he sang lead vocals. He also sang More Fool Me on the 1973 album Selling England by the Pound. During the recording of The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway in 1974, Collins contributed drums to Brian Eno's second album, Taking Tiger Mountain. In August 1975, Peter Gabriel's departure from Genesis was publicly announced. The band advertised for a replacement and received around 400 responses. During the lengthy audition process, Collins sang backup for applicants, but eventually took on the role of lead vocalist while recording their album, A Trick of the Tail. The album was a commercial and critical success, reaching number 3 in the UK and 31 in the US. For the tour, Collins enlisted former Yes and King Crimson drummer Bill Bruford to play drums. Wind and Wuthering was the last Genesis album with Steve Hackett before his departure in 1977. Collins brought in American drummer Chester Thompson, formerly of Frank Zappa and Weather Report, who became a mainstay in Genesis's and Collins's backing bands until 2010. The trio of Collins, Banks, and Rutherford decided to continue as Genesis, releasing And Then There Were Three in 1978. This album marked a shift from their progressive rock roots to a more radio-friendly pop rock sound, featuring their first UK Top 10 and US Top 40 single, Follow You, Follow Me. The band's success allowed Collins and his wife to move into Old Croft in Shalford, Surrey, in the spring of 1978. However, this was not going to last, building a solo music career. After Genesis finished their tour in December 1978, the band went on hiatus as Phil Collins traveled to Vancouver, Canada, to save his failing marriage. Unfortunately, the attempt was unsuccessful, leading to his wife returning to England with their children, and Collins living apart. He returned to their home, Old Croft, in Shalford, Surrey, and their divorce was finalized in 1981. During this period, Collins rejoined Brand X for their album Product and its tour. He also played on John Martyn's album Grace and Danger, and began writing his own demos at home. Genesis resumed activity in 1980 with the recording and touring of their album Duke, where Collins contributed the tracks Please Don't Ask and Misunderstanding. In February 1981, Collins released his debut solo album Face Value, signing with Virgin Records and WEA for American distribution, to distance himself from the Charisma label. He oversaw every step of its production, even handwriting the liner notes. The album's lyrical themes and titles were deeply influenced by his divorce. Face Value reached number 1 in 7 countries, including the UK Albums Chart, and number 7 in the US, where it sold 5 million copies. The lead single, In the Air Tonight, became a hit, reaching number 2 in the UK charts, and is known for the gated reverb effect used on Collins's drums. Following an invitation by record producer Martin Lewis, Collins performed live as a solo artist at an Amnesty International benefit show, The Secret Policeman's Other Ball, at the Theatre Royal, Drury Lane, in London in September 1981, performing In the Air Tonight and The Roof is Leaking. He also worked again with John Martyn that year, producing his album Glorious Fool. In September 1981, Genesis released Abacab, followed by a supporting tour and a 2-month tour in 1982 to promote the live album 3 Sides Live. The same year, Collins produced and played on Something's Going On, the 3rd solo album by Annie Fried Lyngstad of ABBA, and performed most of the drum parts on Pictures at 11, the 1st solo album by Led Zeppelin singer Robert Plant. In October, he took part in the one-off Genesis reunion concert, 6 of the Best, at the Milton Keynes Bowl, marking the return of Peter Gabriel and Steve Hackett. Collins' 2nd solo album, Hello, I Must Be Going, was released in November 1982. His ongoing marital problems continued to inspire his music, evident in songs like I Don't Care Anymore and Do You Know, Do You Care? The album reached number 2 in the UK and number 8 in the US, where it sold 3 million copies. Its 2nd single, a cover of the Supremes' You Can't Hurry Love, became Collins' first UK number 1 single and reached number 10 in the US. Collins supported the album with the Hello, I Must Be Going tour of Europe and North America from November 1982 to February 1983. Following the tour, he played drums on Plant's 2nd solo album, The Principle of Moments, and produced and played on 2 tracks for Adamant's album Strip, including Puss in Boots and the title track. In May 1983, Collins, Banks, and Rutherford recorded a self-titled Genesis album, concluding its tour with 5 shows in Birmingham, England, in February 1984. Following this, Collins wrote and performed Against All Odds, the main theme for the romantic film of the same name. Released in February 1984, it became the first single of his solo career to reach number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart and peaked at number 2 in the UK. The song earned Collins a Grammy Award for Best Pop Vocal Performance, Male, and an Academy Award nomination for Best Original Song. The same year, he also contributed to the production of Chinese Wall by Earth, Wind and Fire vocalist Philip Bailey, including a duet, Easy Lover, which topped the UK charts for 4 weeks and reached number 2 in the US. Additionally, he produced and played drums on several tracks for Eric Clapton's album Behind the Sun, and participated in the Band Aid charity supergroup, playing drums on the single Do They Know It's Christmas. Collins' third album, No Jacket Required, recorded in 1984, marked a significant shift in his musical style towards more upbeat, dance-oriented songs with strong hooks and melodies, such as Susudio, One More Night, and Take Me Home. The album was released in February 1985 and achieved worldwide success, reaching number 1 in several countries. Susudio and One More Night both topped the US singles chart, and the album sold over 12 million copies in the US and 1.9 million in the UK, where it was the second best-selling album of 1985. The album's success brought Collins critical acclaim, including 3 Grammy Awards, with No Jacket Required winning Album of the Year. He also won his first 2 Brit Awards for Best British Male and Best British Album. In 1985, Collins achieved 3 US number 1 songs, the most by any artist that year. During the No Jacket Required World Tour, Collins performed 85 shows between February and July 1985. In November 1985, Separate Lives, a duet with Marilyn Martin for the film White Nights, became a US number 1 hit. By the end of the year, Collins' solo success had surpassed that of Genesis. Despite this, he maintained his commitment to the band, reuniting with Banks and Rutherford to record Invisible Touch, released in 1986. The album became Genesis' best-selling record, with its title track reaching number 1 in the US. In March 1986, Collins worked with Howard Jones on the single No One Is to Blame, and later that year, he produced and played on most of Clapton's album August. Collins also toured Europe with Clapton. After touring with Genesis in 1987, he took a year off from writing and recording due to overexposure. He starred in the romantic comedy drama Buster, about the Great Train Robbery, contributing 4 songs to its soundtrack. His rendition of A Groovy Kind of Love became a number 1 hit in the UK and US, and Two Hearts also reached number 1 in the US, winning a Golden Globe for Best Original Song. In 1988, Collins was featured in the British TV series This Is Your Life, and in 1989, he was among the musicians who donated clothes to Madame Tussauds Rock Circus exhibition. In August 1989, Phil Collins appeared as a special guest for The Who during their 1989 tour. From April to October 1989, Collins recorded his 4th album, But Seriously, in England and Los Angeles. This album saw him addressing social and political themes in his lyrics, a shift from his earlier work. Released in November 1989, the album achieved worldwide commercial success, spending 15 weeks at number 1 on the UK charts and 3 weeks at number 1 in the US. It became the UK's best-selling album of 1990 and is one of the best-selling albums in UK chart history. The album's lead single, Another Day in Paradise, is an anti-homelessness song featuring David Crosby on backing vocals. Released in October 1989, it became the final number 1 single in the US for the 1980s. pushing forward in the music industry. In 1991, Collins reconvened with Banks and Rutherford to write and record a new Genesis album, We Can't Dance. The album became the band's fifth consecutive #1 in the UK and reached #4 in the US, selling over 4 million copies. It featured singles like Jesus He Knows Me, I Can't Dance, No Son of Mine, and Hold On My Heart. Collins worked on his fifth studio album, Both Sides, in 1992 and 1993. This album marked a departure from his more polished, up-tempo songs to more experimental and personal material. Collins performed all the instruments and produced the record himself. The decline of his second marriage was a focal point of the album. Released in November 1993, Both Sides reached #1 in 8 countries, including the UK, and #13 in the US. While it marked a drop in sales compared to his previous records, it still achieved a platinum certification in the US. The album's 2 biggest singles were Both Sides of the Story and Every Day. Following this, on March 29, 1996, Collins publicly announced his decision to leave Genesis to concentrate on his solo career. In the months surrounding his departure from Genesis, Phil Collins formed the Phil Collins Big Band, where he took on the role of drummer. Collins had long desired to undertake this project and was inspired by the Burning for Buddy project organized by drummer Neil Peart. After moving to Switzerland, an invitation to perform at the Montreux Jazz Festival brought the band together, featuring Quincy Jones as conductor and Tony Bennett on vocals. The group toured summer jazz festivals in July 1996, performing jazz renditions of Genesis and Collins's solo material. Their first performance was at the Royal Albert Hall for a Prince's Trust concert attended by Queen Elizabeth II and Nelson Mandela. After a hiatus, the band resumed a US and European tour in the summer of 1998, which resulted in the live album A Hot Night in Paris. In October 1996, Collins released his 6th solo album, Dance Into the Light. It reached #4 in the UK and #23 in the US, but was received negatively by the music press and sold less than his previous albums. Entertainment Weekly noted that, "Even Phil Collins must know that we all grew weary of Phil Collins." The album featured singles such as Dance Into the Light, which reached #9 in the UK, and the Beatles-inspired It's in Your Eyes. In October 1998, Collins released his first compilation album, Hits, which included a new track, a cover of Cyndi Lauper's True Colors, produced by Kenneth Babyface Edmonds. The album was a commercial success, reaching #1 in the UK charts and selling 3.4 million copies in the US by 2012. In the mid-1990s, Collins was recruited to write and perform songs for Disney's Tarzan, with a score by Mark Mancina. Collins also sang his songs in multiple languages for the film's dubbed versions. His song, You'll Be in My Heart, spent 19 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Adult Contemporary chart, the longest time ever up to that point, and won him an Academy Award and a Golden Globe Award for Best Original Song in 2000. In June 1999, Collins received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. As the new decade dawned, Collins became partially deaf in one ear due to a viral infection. This did not stop him, though, as 2 years later, in June 2002, he drummed for the house band at the party at the Palace concert, celebrating Queen Elizabeth II's Golden Jubilee. He also received the Disney Legend Award that year. Collins released his 7th solo album, Testify, in November 2002. The album's single, Can't Stop Loving You, was a #1 adult contemporary hit, though Testify sold only 140,000 copies in the US by year's end. Following this, Disney hired him to compose and perform the soundtrack for its 2003 animated feature, Brother Bear, which included the song Look Through My Eyes. That same year, he was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. In 2004, Collins released 2 compilation albums, The Platinum Collection and Love Songs. From June 2004 to November 2005, he embarked on his first final farewell tour, and the next year he collaborated with Disney on a musical production of Tarzan. He also reunited with Genesis members Tony Banks and Mike Rutherford to announce Turn It On Again. The tour, which took place in summer 2007 across Europe and North America. In May 2008, Collins received his 6th Ivor Novello Award for International Achievement. In October 2009, Collins announced plans to record a Motown covers album, aiming to replicate the original sound. Despite a spinal operation, he managed to play the drums on the album. The resulting album, Going Back, was released in September 2010 and reached #1 on the UK Albums Chart. In March 2010, Collins was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a member of Genesis. In March 2011, due to deteriorating health and other issues, Collins announced a break from his career but did not retire. The following year, in July 2012, his greatest hits collection, titled Hits, re-entered the US charts, reaching #6 on the Billboard 200. In May 2014, Collins performed with student musicians at the Miami Country Day School, where his sons attended. In August 2014, he accepted an invitation to perform at a benefit concert for his Little Dreams Foundation, but had to cancel due to illness. The next year, he signed a deal with Warner Music Group to remaster and reissue his solo albums, which included previously unreleased material. By October 2015, Collins revealed that he was no longer retired and was in the process of planning a new album and tour. By mid-2016, all 8 of his albums had been reissued with updated artwork featuring Collins as he appeared older, except Going Back. In October 2016, Collins published his autobiography, Not Dead Yet. At a press conference held at the Royal Albert Hall that same month, he announced the Not Dead Yet tour, initially scheduled as a short European run starting in June 2017. The tour included 5 nights at the Royal Albert Hall, which sold out in just 15 seconds, leading to Collins's headline performance at the 2017 BST Hyde Park Festival, marking his largest solo concert. The tour was extended globally and continued until October 2019, totaling 97 shows. Also in 2019, Collins released additional digital-only collections, Other Sides and Remixed Sides. In March 2020, Collins, along with Genesis members Tony Banks and Mike Rutherford, announced the reformation of the band for the Last Domino tour. After being rescheduled twice due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the tour commenced in September 2021 and concluded in London on March 26, 2022. At the final show at the O2 Arena in London, Collins declared it would be Genesis's last performance. This is pretty much the story of Phil Collins, the musician. So what about Phil Collins, the man behind the voice, personal life, marriages, and health issues? Phil Collins has been married 3 times. His first marriage was to Andrea Bertarelli, a Canadian-born actress he met as a child in a London drama class. They reconnected in 1974 when Genesis performed in Vancouver, and married in 1975. During their marriage, Collins adopted Bertarelli's daughter, Joely, born in 1972, who later became an actress and film producer. They also had a son, Simon, born in 1976, who is a musician and former vocalist and drummer of the band Sound of Contact. Their marriage ended in 1980, largely due to the strains imposed by his burgeoning music career and the personal challenges that came with it. The couple's relationship became increasingly strained as Collins's fame grew, and the pressures of his career, combined with their personal issues, led to a breakdown in their marriage. Despite their efforts to work through their difficulties, they ultimately decided to separate. In 2016, Bertarelli took legal action against Collins concerning his account of their relationship in his autobiography. Collins's second marriage was to American Jill Tavelman in 1984. They had one daughter, Lily Collins, born in 1989, who has become a successful actress. During their marriage, Collins had 2 affairs with Lavinia Lang, a former drama school classmate, while on tour with Genesis in 1992. Collins and Tavelman's marriage deteriorated, leading to their divorce in 1996. Collins had to pay £17 million as part of the settlement. Just 3 years later, Collins married Swiss national Oriane Sevi, who had worked as his translator during his 1994 tour. They had 2 sons, Nicholas and Matthew. Matthew pursued a career in football, playing for youth teams at Hannover 96 and Astoria Waldorf. Collins and Sevi divorced in 2006, with Collins paying £25 million, the largest settlement in a British celebrity divorce at the time. Following the divorce, Collins lived in Switzerland, New York City, and Norfolk. From 2007 to 2016, Collins was in a relationship with American news anchor Dana Tyler. After Sevi and her sons moved to Miami in 2008, Collins went through a period of personal struggle, including excessive drinking. However, he made amends to improve his life. By 2015, he had been sober for 3 years. Collins moved to Miami Beach in 2015 to be closer to his younger sons and later reunited with Sevi. However, in October 2020, Collins filed an eviction notice against Sevi after she secretly married another man. Through it all, he also braved many health challenges. In 1999, he experienced a sudden loss of hearing in his left ear after a recording session in Los Angeles. Despite consulting 3 doctors who indicated a slim chance of full recovery, Collins gradually regained most of his hearing over the next 2 years, eventually discovering that the condition was due to a viral infection that was resolved through treatment. 10 years later, Collins underwent surgery on his upper neck to address an issue that had begun during the 2007 Genesis tour. The surgery led to a loss of feeling in his fingers, impairing his ability to grip drumsticks without them being taped to his hands. By 2010, Collins revealed struggles with depression and low self-worth, admitting he had contemplated ending his life, but thankfully chose not to for his children's sake. Although he later found it was not arthritis but an undiagnosed nerve problem affecting his drumming, by 2014 he was still unable to play the drums with his left hand. In 2015, he had a spine operation, and by 2016, he continued to face challenges, needing to take a gradual approach and practice to regain his drumming ability. In January 2017, he revealed he was a type 2 diabetic and had treated a diabetic abscess on his foot with a hyperbaric chamber. Later that year, he canceled 2 shows after slipping in his hotel room and injuring himself, a consequence of his foot drop from his back surgery. Following this, he had to use a cane for walking and sitting in a chair during performances. Despite facing numerous health challenges in recent years, Phil Collins remains a towering figure in music. His influence and contributions have made him a legend in the industry. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Did you like this video? If you did, please consider liking, dropping a comment, and hitting the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on our new uploads. Also, don't miss this video you see on your screen right now. It's truly unbelievable.